Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, let's get into the news. Don't you find that interesting? It's been 2 years of this nonsense garbage sham hyper-partisan January 6th committee, and during these last 2 years we have learned nothing new, just a bunch of bogus Democrat fake news being promoted by the media from Cassidy Hutchinson and the rest. Of course, we all know the details. We've covered it so many times. The point is, it's been 2 years of nothing, no big new bombshell, no new information, just the same gaslighting narrative being repeated time after time, in some erection. But isn't it funny that as we get close to hitting the 2-year mark, all of a sudden as the January 6th committee is coming to an end? Well, now we're finally finding all kinds of new information, massive, scathing bombshells that are seemingly changing the whole narrative and confirming what we knew all along. But there's a lot more to this than Nancy Pelosi, Liz Cheney, and the rest of them wants you to believe. It seems as though all it really took to get to the bottom, to get to the truth, was the end of the January 6th committee and the end of Nancy Pelosi has a stranglehold on the House of Representatives, and of course by virtue of the House investigation, of course, we're the ushering in of this new conservative majority, folks. Another massive huge revelation as House Republicans find a text message and email evidence proving what we knew all along when it comes to January 6th. All roads lead directly to Nancy Pelosi office. We got a bombshell to get into. Alright, folks, so the information continues to pile up. I made these 2 videos already, both videos including document evidence and a detailed report directly proving what the media calls January 6th. Conspiracy theories as correct. Of course, the stuff of nightmares when it comes to Nancy Pelosi is narrative. She certainly doesn't want you to know that this stuff exists. Well, it continues to get worse for little old Nancy. Huge House Republicans find text and email evidence that Pelosi staffers secretly decreased security at the U.S. Capitol for January 6th. While at the same time Pelosi was organizing a film crew that day, Rogan O. Hendley posted a text message from Nancy Pelosi staff secretly editing the January 6th security plan for the U.S. Capitol and then telling House Sergeant at Arms to please act surprised when the final draft was published. House Sergeant Arm responded, "I'm startled," to the request, showing his willingness to play along. This is more evidence that the January 6th disruptions were planned in advance. Take a look at this. Road No. Hadley writes, "Nothing to see here, just a text message from Pelosi staff secretly editing the January 6th security plan and telling the House Sergeant at Arms to please act surprised when the final draft was published." Translation: Pelosi staff was directly weakening J6 security and didn't want anyone to know. Take a look at this bombshell text message evidence. Here's a text message between HSA and the Speaker staff, January 4, 2021. "Thanks. Davis also wants a briefing. Can we do joint or do you prefer separate? Either way obviously works. Or making Terry's edits to the Electoral College DC, and if you don't mind, I'll send it to you and Jen as a heads up, so please act surprised." Sergeant at Arms then responds, "I'm startled," sarcastically. The whole thing was a gaslighting style project. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer on multiple occasions have explicitly denied making a change to the Capitol security plans ahead of January 6th, but it seems as though that's exactly what they did. And now we have the House Sergeant at Arms apparently texting a Pelosi staffer going with the plan with a sarcastic "Oh, I am so startled at this sudden change of plans." It seems as though they were all in on it. And it seems as though Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have lied on multiple occasions when questioned on this issue. I may not be the smartest person on the planet, but I'm definitely no dummy. And I could see a con when it's obvious and playing right in front of me. We all remember Pelosi on January 6th to her stage camera crew. "I hope Trump comes in, I'm going to punch him out and I'm going to go to jail and I'm going to be happy." We're all going to pretend like it's totally normal that Nancy Pelosi was filming a friggin' documentary the day of January 6th to try to create almost like an action thriller, Capitol being seized by a bunch of MAGA zombies like the friggin' Walking Dead. Nancy Pelosi trying to paint herself like the friggin' Rick Grimes of the day. It's utterly ridiculous. Again, I'm not the smartest guy, but I ain't no dummy, and that Nancy Pelosi has camera crew on the day of isn't a coincidence. Capitol police officers opening barricades, no coincidence. Opening doors, allowing people through, no coincidence. You even to the extent of Capitol police officers in charge of the whole security apparatus, remotely unlocking magnetic doors, openly allowing protesters into the building. None of it adds up, and especially what doesn't add up is the Democrat narrative about this whole thing. There's something else here at play, and we have more direct evidence suggesting that it was a psyop and that Nancy Pelosi office was directly involved colluding with the House Sergeant at Arms. The evidence is seriously starting to mount up not only to Nancy Pelosi and the House Sergeant at Arms denied Donald Trump's request for extra National Guard troops, but it seems as though these text messages are suggesting that it was a whole lot more orchestrated and planned than that. It goes beyond just that one simple decision. The GOP is doing a stellar report here. House Republicans have gathered a trove of text messages and emails showing how Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office was directly involved in the creation and editing of the Capitol security plan that failed during the January 6, 2021 riot, and that security officials declared that they had been denied again and again the resources that they needed to protect the nation's most important homes of democracy. The internal communications were made public on Wednesday. In a report compiled by Republican Representatives Rodney Davis, Jim Banks, Troy Nehls, Jim Jordan and Kelly Armstrong that encompass the results of months of investigations that they did have evidence that has been ignored by the Democrat-led January 6 committee, the lawmakers were authorized by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to do their own probe. The report concludes that the Capitol was left vulnerable on January 6, as a result of failures by Democratic leadership in the House and law enforcement leaders in the Capitol Police who allowed concerns about the optics of having armed officers and National Guardsmen visible to the public to override the need for enhanced security. I'm sure that's the official narrative. But what it really seems like is that Democrats in charge of security purposely left the Capitol vulnerable, and then we saw little plants like Ray Epps, who's now on the record, claiming that he quote orchestrated it, and not only is he on the record, he's on frickin' video essentially orchestrating the whole thing, but they had plants like Ray Epps to rile up the crowd to target that mob mentality phenomenon to create a ruckus on the day. Well, Nancy Pelosi got over video footage for friggin' documentary action film. The whole thing's a damn joke. The Democrat narrative is swiftly falling apart. The January 6 investigation tried so hard to conclude that Donald Trump was at the core of all of it. It was an organized plot to overthrow the government. Donald Trump went rogue like Rambo, assaulting Capitol police officers attempting to lead the charge on the Capitol. That's the official Democrat narrative. But it seems as though the real narrative is that this was a Nancy Pelosi-led psyop. It wasn't a coup or an insurrection. It was Capitol security sabotage, a security failure of epic proportions on the day, and either way, whether we can prove that it was intentional or not, the story still is and still should revolve around failures to secure the Capitol. The narrative is bust. It's been bust. FBI frickin' busted it a long time ago. And this stuff needs to be made public. Republicans need to go hard, launch a primetime committee just like the Democrats did, and expose the American public to the truth. Honestly, I doubt they will. I doubt they'll make a big spectacle. But at least there's a little guy like me on this small platform who can try. The whole thing was part of Nancy Pelosi's evil master plan. That's the conclusion. And then, this is some big news. Congress is in total chaos as Republicans fight with each other on who will be the next Speaker of the House. Ukraine hits Russia with its most deadly attack yet, thanks to U.S. military weapons. Attorney General Merrick Garland stands between a political rock and a hard place with Donald Trump. And Mitch McConnell becomes the longest-running senator in American history. But is this a good thing? Ukraine has just hit Russia with a massive deadly attack using weapons supplied by the United States taxpayers. A top Russian commander stated the Kyiv regime delivered a Stryker firing 6 projectile missiles from us made high Omar multiple rocket launchers on a Russian unit near Mechi EPCA. In the Donetsk People Republic, the attack left 63 Russian service members killed. While this number is very high, Ukraine is saying that number is actually closer to 400 soldiers killed. Either way, this attack is one of Russia's single biggest losses during the entire war, because the weapons system was supplied by the United States. However, there is worry there that there could be pushed back on the United States or NATO from Russia. But I'll continue to update you as this is a news story. Following Ukraine's successful attack, Zelensky has now stated that we have information that Russia is planning a prolonged attack by showerheads. Showerheads are Iranian-made exploding drones, and they will likely be used in response to Ukraine's rocket attack. Zelensky further expounded on Putin's motives by stating that he wants to break his people by exhausting every aspect of life. So, Putin will continue to attack Ukraine and dismantle them one by one. But here's a big win for the people of Ukraine. President Joe Biden has confirmed plans to hold a White House-based ceremony on January 6 to mark the 2-year anniversary of the Capitol breach. Biden will be giving a speech which, in my opinion, will likely condemn the attack, while at the same time honoring those that lost their lives. He will also likely use this as an opportunity to say he's uniting the country while denigrating MAGA Republicans and saying things about Donald Trump. He may even push for the Department of Justice to do something, whereas right now, they've not made a move. As mentioned, so far, the Department of Justice has brought no criminal charges against former President Donald Trump, but many believe it's just a matter of time before they do. I believe AG Merrick Garland is in a tough position. This would be the first time an American president will ever be charged with criminal activity. And it would also, at the same time, likely in his career, as he would be forced to resign or be impeached by a House-led Republican Party. So we'll see what he ends up doing. There's also many experts that are saying he may just do nothing and allow Trump to sink or swim based on public opinion and information from the January 6 committee. Nancy Pelosi has written a final letter to her party before stepping down as Speaker of the House. The letter read, "One final thought that I wanted to leave with you is my belief that the House Democratic Caucus is the greatest collection of intellect, integrity and imagination assembled for the good of the American people." So she left her party with very kind words. Republican Kevin McCarthy is still facing massive pushback on becoming the new Speaker of the House with a Republican-led House. Today, the first round of votes was held in the House with new members. On their first day, Kevin McCarthy failed to get the votes necessary to secure a Speaker of the House. Now this hasn't happened in over 100 years. He then lost the second vote for Speaker just hours later. Now, many Republicans are saying it's time for him to step down and put forward Jim Jordan before Democrats are allowed to become Speaker of the House with Republicans controlling the majority. So basically, right now, Congress is in chaos, and the Republican Party is dealing with so much infighting that they may end up cutting off their own nose just to spite their face, as they say. It was 19 Republicans that voted against Kevin McCarthy of California, which was higher than what was expected going into the vote. He thought he might lose by maybe 4 or 5 votes, but it was 19. Democrats, on the other hand, fell in line behind Pelosi as recommendation of Hakeem Jeffries. The vote will now go to a third round, with several members of the Freedom Caucus saying McCarthy has not earned the right to be Speaker of the House, so they will continue to vote against him. However, even though a Speaker hasn't gone to a second or third round in over 100 years. Historically, this has happened 100 times, and the longest it took was 2 months before a Speaker was voted into office. Now, Mitch McConnell has now surpassed the late Senator Mike Mansfield. By breaking the record of being the longest-serving Senate leader, McConnell has spent over 16 years leading the Republican Senate and is expected to give a speech on the House floor later today. McConnell stated, "The greatest honor of my career is representing the Commonwealth of Kentucky in this chamber and fighting for my fellow Kentuckians. But the second greatest honor is the trust of my fellow Republican senators have placed in me to lead our diverse conference and help them achieve their goals." Now, the Lung is the longest-running Senate Republican senator leader in U.S. history. And I'm sure being in Washington, D.C. that long has only made him more honest. CNN's ratings show the News Network has lost another 30% of viewers in 2022. It's been a rough 2 years for CNN. For the most trusted news network in news, people sure seem to not trust them. However, the highest-ranking news network is Fox News. Now, I don't personally watch Fox News except for certain sports programs. But it seems a high percentage of the country does watch Fox News. According to new data out today, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un announced his goal in 2023 is to significantly increase his nuclear weapons arsenal. South Korea is now blaming the Biden administration for being weak in allowing North Korea to fire missiles at them at Japan and for not putting their foot down on nuclear weapons. Last night, Buffalo Bills player Damar Hamlin went into cardiac arrest as a blow to his chest during the game against the Cincinnati Bengals. This sparked nationwide outcry, which led to the game being postponed. Following the incident, Hamlin's charity fund raised over $3 million. Despite only having a goal of 2,500, Hamlet's heartbeat was reportedly restored, but he's in critical condition and has to be on forced oxygen and an automated defibrillator. I'll continue to update you on the story. They're now saying it was a 1 in 200 million chance that this happened, or it could be something external that he did in the last few months that has affected his body and his heart. Disgraced former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried has found people willing to sign off on his $250 million bond. Because of the high-risk nature of this case and how much money people are going to lose, the judge required the SPF fine 2 people have considerable means to sign off on his bond. However, his lawyers have requested that their identities remain private for their safety. Now, how did SBF get this $250 million bond if he's supposedly broke? Well, for those that don't understand bonds, you only have to put up about 10% of the bond and likely has something to do with outside money and also his parents' mansion to secure that bond. But who do you think are the 2 high net worth individuals that are willing to defend Sam Bankman-Fried? Possibly one of the biggest scammers in world history. My best guesses on one of them would be Shark Tank investor Kevin O'Leary, who had invested about $15 million. Now, right before filming this, Sam Bankman-Fried pled not guilty to fraud and running a massive Ponzi scheme. So now one of the largest lawsuits in history will begin. I guess, unlike Bernie Madoff, he doesn't want to go to jail. He actually wants to be a free man and tried to defend himself. So we'll see where that ends up going. All major stock indexes were red today. So I took the opportunity to buy into 2 of them, as I expect them to bounce back. Tesla cars lost 14% after missing delivery numbers despite a record car production last quarter, and even Apple is struggling in the trades today. Gold and silver are both up today. We will be back early tomorrow with the news to get you all caught up. All caught up until then, ciao. Goodbye. God bless. Smash the like button, hit that subscribe button and notification bell.